M1 MacBook Pro. If you are an Apple nerd like me, then you are extremely pumped over the new MacBook Pro. And the reason why you're excited is because they finally put a little bit of thought into what a professional would need in a laptop. There's a bunch of reviews out there of better YouTubers than me reviewing the M1 MacBook Pro. So I'm not gonna do that, because there's plenty of content out there already. So what I'm going to do is basically tell you guys how this thing has been performing for me. Now I do a couple of things on my computers. I edit videos, I do renderings, 3D renderings, engineering renderings, things like that. And just the typical watching YouTube, Excel sheets, PowerPoints, and everyday use case scenarios as the typical person might need. And I've been able to accomplish those tasks a little bit easier because of the M1 MacBook Pro. In case you don't know why everybody's going nuts over these MacBook Pros, that's because these have the M1 chips in them. They're Apple's own silicon instead of using an Intel chip as the CPU, and they're supposed to be a lot more efficient and much more powerful and better integrated in the computer, and that's why they're performing much better. Now I specifically got the M1 Max as opposed to the M1 Pro, so you've got the M1 Pro and then you've got the M1 Max for those who are going to be doing tasks that are a little bit more intense. And this thing has been an absolute beast. First off, something that I am completely stoked about. And yeah, you're gonna laugh because it's so simple, but SD card. You don't understand how much of a good feeling that is. I am now able to edit videos or whatever I need on an SD card connected straight to the computer rather than using one of these. I am sick of these. Probably gonna need that later. But yeah, Apple has put in a little bit more thought in what a professional might need, and that means it's called the MacBook Pro for a reason. It's for professional use. And you can't assume that a professional is not going to need certain slots. So finally, we've got an SD card slot, we've got a HDMI input, Apple's new MagSafe, so that's awesome because if you're walking by, you don't trip over the wire, and if you were, the wire would just disconnect from the computer rather than pulling your computer straight off the table and probably damaging it and dropping it on the ground, right? And you've also got your Type-C. And from all the comments that I can make, the biggest comment that I can probably make is that this thing is extremely, extremely powerful. One way that I was able to see how powerful this thing is just by rendering videos. So typically when I would edit a video, let's say it's a 5 to 10 minute video, right? It would take me about 15 minutes to render on my old laptop. With this bad boy, it takes less than 5 minutes to render a video. Obviously, this depends on the project file and how big it is and the type of footage. I typically edit in 1080p, but being that I have this thing now, I am going to start filming in 4K. A couple of other things that stood out to me. This thing is a brick, okay? It's extremely heavy. It's much larger in terms of form factor than the old MacBook Pro, the 2018 or the 2019. I get it. It's a much more powerful machine. It kind of does need a little bit more space for air output and processing power. Not a big deal to me. I know a lot of people are upset. The way I see it, it's a professional machine. It kind of needs its own, it needs to be a little bit bigger so it can handle a little bit more. Now, other than the screen being awesome, to be honest with you, I don't really know if the screen has been improved. I'm sure it has. I know that the camera has been improved. It's now 1080, which is crazy. How can a MacBook Pro, the 2018 or 2019, have been 720p? That's kind of nuts. Immediately, the keyboard. Way better than those butterfly keys in the 2018 version. They feel really good, they're very comfortable, very tactile, loving the keyboard. Another thing, the touch bar is gone. Now, the touch bar was kind of cool to me. Honestly, I thought it was a little bit of a gimmick. It was annoying that you didn't have tactile buttons in order to change the volume. The one thing I do miss is when texting, you can just select an emoji from the touch bar, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Now that I've been using this with the tactile buttons, I rather this any day over the touch bar. So, touch bar being gone, not a big deal to me. I'm not that upset. The speakers have been improved quite a bit. They're definitely a lot more powerful and a little bit louder, and you can tell that there's a little bit more bass. So the speakers it's pretty noticeable. All in all, I think the question boils down to, is it worth upgrading from a 2018 or 2019 MacBook Pro to this new M1 chip MacBook Pro? In my opinion, the answer is yes. And that's because I do video editing, renders, and things like that require a lot of processing power. If you're just doing spreadsheets and watching YouTube and PowerPoint, you're a student or a young professional who doesn't really need anything that's CPU intensive. But if you're just gonna use this for like everyday, YouTube, PowerPoint, Excel, just basic daily tasks, I definitely wouldn't upgrade. It takes a lot to justify this price tag. This specific model was almost 3,700 bucks. I think the cheapest 16-inch is like 27 or something. I'll put it up on the screen. But it definitely does take a lot to justify the price point. Now obviously when you buy this type of thing, it's an investment. And if you're gonna make money off of it, which I'm hoping on editing these videos and YouTube and the YouTube channel growing, then it might make sense for you. But if it doesn't, then I totally wouldn't suggest upgrading. Let me know what you guys think. Did you just get the M1 MacBook Pro? Are you liking it? Are you not? Did you expect more? Did you expect less? Tell me exactly what you're thinking in the comments. And if I have any updates, I'll make sure that I update and pin a comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you give this video a like, and I'll see you guys next time.